Welcome to the Long COVID podcast with me, Jackie Baxter. I am really excited to bring you today's episode. Please do check out the links in the show notes where you can find the podcast website, social media and support group, as well as a link to buy me a coffee if you are able. You should not rely on any medical information contained in this podcast and related materials in making medical, health-related or other decisions. Please do consult a doctor or other health professional. I love to hear from you. If you've got any suggestions or feedback or just want to say hey, then please do get in touch. I really hope you enjoy this episode, so here we go. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Long COVID podcast. Thank you for joining me today as I unpack one of my favourite quotes from my own recovery and explore how we can empower ourselves even when that feels completely impossible. So make yourselves comfortable, or as comfortable as you can be. Maybe you want to lie yourself down with some pillows and blankets and snuggle in, or sit down and put your feet up. Or maybe you're listening as you walk or you're doing a task. I'm sitting here in my room that I use for interviews and with clients. The sun is streaming through the window, which is unusual in Scotland. The sky is blue, the trees are dressed in their amazing autumn colours. And of course, I have a cup of tea to keep me company as I attempt to bring my thoughts into order. So, one of the first books that I read, or I think listened to actually, during my own recovery was the book Breath by James Nestor. It's a book that I recommend now to any of my group members or one-to-one clients because it's amusing and informative and fairly accessible as well. It's not too heavy. It's also packed full of so much good stuff. And when I first read this book, the one thing that jumped out at me most was this quote: "You are the pilot, not the passenger." And I think when I heard this, I heard it with quite a hefty dose of irony because, I was still unwell at the time. With an illness like long COVID or ME/CFS, it's really easy to feel completely out of control. Your body is not your own. Your symptoms are everywhere and overwhelming. You have no control over anything, and you feel terrible all the time as well. When I first became unwell, I had no idea what to do or where to start. And it actually took me over a year before I found anything that helped me to feel like I had any sort of control. And even then, to be honest, it wasn't that much. But over time, I did manage to take back a bit of control. So finding the things that help, knowing what to do or what not to do and when. And over time, I did begin to feel a little bit more of a pilot in my own recovery, in my own life, than I did before. So, as I said, I highly recommend this book, but a quick summary of it is as follows for anyone who hasn't read it or doesn't feel like it's accessible to them at the moment. So, Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art by James Nestor explores how modern humans have lost the ability to breathe optimally and how reclaiming the skill can transform health, sleep, and well-being. In this best-selling book, Nestor blends personal experience with scientific research to uncover the profound impact of breathing on nearly every aspect of our lives. He investigates ancient breathing techniques and modern studies to reveal how poor breathing habits, especially mouth breathing, can contribute to chronic illness, anxiety, and fatigue. Through experiments, interviews, and global exploration, Nestor advocates for simple yet powerful shifts like nasal breathing, slower exhalations, and conscious breathwork. This book is both a call to awareness and a practical guide showing that by changing how we breathe, we can change how we live. Now, I'm not going to talk that much about breathing specifically in this episode. I just wanted to give a little bit of context about where the quote came from. However, it would be irresponsible of me not to caution you. The breath is a hugely powerful modality. And I would just caution you against trying breath practices without guidance from someone who has that lived experience of long COVID or ME/CFS and has an understanding of the nervous system. It's so important to be gentle, and often breath practices do need to be adapted to begin with. So just go careful. However, as I said, I'm not talking massively about breathing specifically here. Although, of course, the breath is absolutely incredible. What I'm going to talk about today is this quote: "You are the pilot, not the passenger." So I'm exploring what it means to be the pilot of your own recovery, not the passenger. Even when the skies are foggy, you still hold the controls. And a note about metaphors, actually, because I'm all about creativity. I recently learned that we use around 6 metaphors a minute, and probably without realizing. How cool is that? And I'll be totally honest and say that my mind is taking me back to my school days where we were asked, what's the difference between a metaphor and a simile? Which isn't very relevant to now, and I can't remember the answer anyway. So feel free to let me know if you do remember. So why does this metaphor matter? Let's unpack this. So the passenger. The passenger is passive, reactive, possibly uncertain. The passenger is being taken along for the ride, transported to someone else's timetable and needs. The pilot is intentional, responsive, grounded. Have you ever met a pilot? I don't think I've actually ever met one, but I do loosely know a couple. Or have you ever heard them speak? They have these beautifully calm, reassuring voices. They make us feel safe, even when the plane feels really bumpy. They just have this air of having got it all together. And like, let's be real, no one's got it totally together. But these pilots just make you feel safe. And let's acknowledge the reality as well. So recovery isn't linear. And sometimes it feels like the plane is flying itself, or worse, it's stalling. I definitely had moments in my own recovery that felt like free fall. Many, many of them. So let's also reframe control. Being the pilot doesn't mean forcing outcomes. It means choosing how you respond, how you pace, and what you prioritize. It's also worth looking at control itself. Why do you feel the need to be in control? What does it mean to you? What would control do for you? I'm someone who likes to be in control. But the reality is that we can't control everything. And when we try, we often make things worse. So how can we balance this? Having enough control that we feel safe enough. So controlling the things that we can control and letting go of what we can't control. Because continuing to try to control things that we can't is exhausting. And it's important to conserve energy for the things that matter, rather than wasting it worrying about things that are out with our control. And there are many of them, aren't there? I'll say that as someone who is still working on this. But when you can be okay with letting things go, it is super, super liberating. So, how can you start to be the pilot of your own life when you are experiencing something like long COVID or ME/CFS or any other health challenge? So, I've put together 4 gentle ways to help you to reclaim your role as a pilot rather than a passenger. So, number 1, micro agency. Focus on the micro. Start small. So choose one small thing each day that feels nourishing. It might be a breath or a sound or a word. Maybe it's time with a supportive loved one, getting some good food, hydrating, intentional rest. Start with something small and practical, something that you can do, something that you can commit to. Be consistent with it. Things like habit trackers can be really useful because then you get to tick it off when you've completed it. And you get that wonderful dopamine hit, as well as knowing that you are taking a step to support your body in recovery. And then over time, it might be next week, next month, it might take longer. At a pace that is comfortable for you, you can expand this. Maybe you expand one breath into a short breathing practice. Maybe one sound becomes a supportive playlist. Maybe you find that you can access yoga nidra practices now. Maybe you can do 2 supportive things each day. So build it into your day in a way that works for you. Be careful not to overcommit yourself. If it's too much, you won't do it at all. And then be kind if you miss a day. Make sure you manage the next day. Don't let missing one day be the start of a new pattern of not doing it. You might even find an accountability partner could be helpful. Could you reach out to a friend or a family member or someone else on their recovery journey? Maybe you could be accountability for each other. Number 2, sensory grounding. Tune into what's around you. Waves, bird song, warmth, coziness. Whether you spend most of your day horizontal or whether you're up and about, the senses are an amazing tool for our nervous system. They're an amazing way in. The power of our senses for the nervous system can be described as an ultra-sensitive, high-speed data acquisition system that acts as the body's essential interface with the world, translating a massive stream of physical and chemical stimuli into the brain's electrochemical language for real-time processing and response. That sounds quite sciencey. Basically, everything we take in through our senses is information for our nervous system. So our nervous system is asking, are we safe? And the senses are sending that information back. So by tuning into the things that make us feel safer, as well as intentionally surrounding ourselves with some of these things, we can start to send ourselves more signals of safety. So maybe you could try the sensory grounding practice of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In fact, I invite you to try it now. Let's do it together if you're able to. So we're going to start off by identifying. So just noticing and naming these things. We're going to identify 5 things that you can see. So just looking around you, naming 5 things. So you don't even need to move your head, but you can if you wish to. So 5 things that you can see. And then 4 things that you can feel. So again, it might be clothes, it might be skin on skin, it might be something you're holding or sitting on. Naming those 4 things that you can feel. And then we're going to move on to 3 things that you can hear. So maybe there are 3 things that are quite close to you. Maybe there are sounds from outside. Maybe it's even my voice. Then noticing 2 things that you can smell. So what are those 2 things you can smell? And then finally, 1 thing that you can taste. We'll be right back. I'm interrupting myself for a second to tell you about long COVID breathing. The fabulous Vicky Jones and I have teamed up to bring you long COVID breathing. We are both passionate about sharing our expertise and experience of the breath and how incredibly helpful that can be with long COVID. We've worked together to develop a course that is specifically tailored to those with long COVID. It's a 6-week course with 12 sessions, all delivered online. The community feel and learning that we're all sharing is such a joy. To find out more information and to sign up for our courses, workshops and other shorter sessions, please check out the link below, longcovidbreathing.com, or email longcovidbreathing@gmail.com to start your breathing journey with us. And by starting to calm inward, notice these things around us. We're noticing the safe things around us, but we're also allowing us to feel safe in the environment that we're in. So by naming things around us, they feel safer. So we're giving ourselves these cues of safety rather than cues of danger. So you may even wish to pause this episode for a moment, rewind, and do that again. Or maybe it's something you want to come back to another time. And I have that exercise, that technique, as a track on my Insight Timer profile as well. And I'll make sure to link that in the show notes below. So that's a technique that you might find useful. You can also surround yourself intentionally with things that help you to relax and feel safe. So it might be a scented candle, a certain smell, maybe a particular album or piece of music. Maybe it's hot chocolate, clothing that feels good, photos or images that you like, maybe some happy memories. What can you do to your environment that makes you feel safer, softer, calmer, or more connected to yourself? And even if it's just one or two things, it's something that you can do. Number 3, rewriting your inner script. So words have power. The way we speak to ourselves influences our actions and our behaviours. And those behaviours are what helps us to make progress or become stuck. We listen to ourselves more than we listen to anyone else. So it's important to be intentional about the way that you speak to yourself and catch yourself and reframe when your internal chatter is hindering rather than helping. So it might be, instead of I'm stuck, you could try I'm pausing. Or instead of I'm broken, it might be I'm healing or recalibrating. Or instead of I'm having a bad day, it might be I'm finding today challenging. So how can you reframe things? This is one of the reasons why I like the phrase recovery journey rather than living with long COVID, for example. Because journey means you're going somewhere. You're on your path, even if it's a bit uncertain. Or even if you're taking the long way round. You might get a wee bit lost, or you might find some challenging terrain that causes you to slow down. But you're still on that path. You're still on that journey. And I think that's important. So starting to notice. And if you live or communicate with others, maybe it's something you can notice together. Number 4, boundaries as navigation. Saying no is a flight correction. Saying yes to rest is landing gear. Boundaries are so important. Maybe, like me, you've never had boundaries before, and now you're in a situation where you've had boundaries enforced. Maybe you need to tweak the boundaries you already had. I recorded an episode, I think earlier this year, with Jules Rogers about boundary setting, which you might find useful. I'll link it in the show notes. She had some really insightful tips to help you to set boundaries, to help you to keep them. She gave some great examples as well. For me, boundaries are a daily practice. It gets easier with time, but I find them a real struggle. But I see it as a way of committing to myself, of putting myself first, which is not something I'd ever done before I got sick and had no choice. And honestly, it's liberating. And it's something that is so important, obviously, during recovery, but also afterwards in order to maintain health. Saying no to things, saying no without making excuses and feeling bad about it. There's a phrase that people use. I think it's in New York, but it's possibly other places too. And that phrase is, that doesn't work for me. And as someone who is British and painfully polite, that felt really uncomfortable for me. I thought, oh gosh, I can't say that. But now I kind of like it. No excuses, no explanations. It might be, I'd love to, but I don't have the space until 2 weeks' time. Or I'd love to meet you for coffee, but I would need to do it at my house. Or I'd love to chat, but I need to keep it to 10 minutes. What are your needs and how can you meet them? What boundaries do you need in order to enable your own healing? How can you put yourself first, even when it's really difficult? So there's 4 strategies. Anyone out there who's an all or nothing person like me, pick one to start with. So maybe you've got some of these strategies in place. Maybe things are improving and then you hit a bump. Something happens. Maybe you have a setback. Symptoms flare up. Maybe something happens out with your control. Maybe your boiler broke or your kid got sick. What do you do when you feel like a passenger again? Because it happens. Let's normalize setbacks. They are, unfortunately, a part of the recovery journey. We know that recovery is nonlinear. It's frustrating, but I've never met anyone who recovered without setbacks and dips. Even pilots hit turbulence. So reassuring yourself, this happens. It sucks, but it happens. And then maybe starting to offer yourself a gentle re-entry. Ask yourself, what is one thing I can choose right now? What is one thing that I can choose right now? What can I do? And I take a minute to close my eyes and breathe. And I ask for help. Could someone else do the shopping? And I get dinner delivered. And you let go of some of the shoulds and use that time to intentionally rest. So what can you do? Little things. And can I soften into this moment even if I don't understand it? Sometimes these setbacks feel so frustrating because we felt like we were doing everything right. We try to overanalyze everything. We try to work it out. We overthink it. Often we'll blame ourselves for the situation. And honestly, whether you caused it or not, blame isn't going to help. And you allow it to just be. And you let go and just allow it to be. The less we fight it, the safer we will feel. Maybe return back to number 1, micro agency. Pick one thing and do it. It's not on my list of strategies, but it might also be worth thinking about who is co-piloting your plane. Are they supporting your journey? Or are they snoozing on the job? Are they handing you water and snacks when you need and helping you navigate? Do you need a new co-pilot? Or maybe they just need a little training and redirection. And don't be afraid to ask for what you need. It's something that is so important to learn, but we often find very, very difficult. So maybe start small, ask for a tiny thing. So starting to feel like you are the pilot in your own life, the pilot in your own recovery, the pilot that is going to go at your pace on your path. So maybe you can take a moment to reflect. What is one gentle choice that you can make today? What can you commit to? Maybe even write it down if you can, or saving it as a voice note to yourself. I, Jackie, commit to going to bed before 10:30 tonight. So choose your choice. Make your choice. Commit to your choice. You can write it down as an email or a fan mail and send it to me if you like. Remember, I can't reply to fan mails. So remember, starting to take agency yourself, letting go of what you can't control, and focusing on those little things that you can, however small they are, because big steps are made of those tiny little conscious choices. I'm so proud of you for showing up. You're not alone in the cockpit. And know that ground control is here to reassure you when you need it. You got this. Thank you so much to all of my guests and to you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it, or at least found it useful. The Long COVID podcast is entirely self-produced and self-funded. I'm doing all of this myself. If you're able to, please go to buymeacoffee.com/longcovidpod to help me cover the costs of hosting the podcast. Please look out for the next episode of the Long COVID podcast. It's available on all the usual podcast hosting things. And do get in touch